First story. My wife lied about where she was going for months after she closes from work and healing. And when I confronted her, I discovered she was emotionally cheating. Now I'm struggling to decide whether to move on or try again. 7 years. That's how long I've been with my wife, and just 2 months ago, we celebrated our 7th anniversary by getting married. It was supposed to be a beautiful milestone, a culmination of everything we'd worked for together. But now that same number haunts me because I can't shake the feeling that everything I've known about our relationship has been built on lies. My wife works at a local restaurant and has been there for about 6 months. It was never an issue. Her shifts would usually end around 11 p.m., and after that, she'd go out with friends, grab some drinks, whatever. She wouldn't come home until between 3 and 6 a.m., and for the longest time, I didn't mind. It worked for me. I'd spend those late hours playing poker with friends or just relaxing at home. I didn't see a problem. She had her social life, I had mine. It was our routine. But then something shifted. I started noticing small things that didn't add up. She would say she was going one place, but then when I checked in with her later, she'd mention somewhere else. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was being paranoid. After all, I trusted her. But the longer this went on, the more suspicious I became. So I started keeping track. I noted where she said she was going, then compared it with the timeline in her Google Maps. That's when it hit me. She was lying. She wasn't going to the places she said she was. She'd told me she was out with friends, but I discovered she was actually going to a house, not just any house, but her manager's. He lived in a shared house with his partner and another coworker. It didn't add up. It was all right there in front of me, undeniable. When I confronted her, I felt like I was on the verge of exploding. I asked her directly, "Where are you really going? What's going on here?" She denied everything. She stuck to her story, swearing she wasn't lying. But I knew she was. I pressed her again. I said, "Tell me the truth. This is the moment. The truth now, or this is it." Still, she denied it. Finally, I showed her the evidence. Her face dropped when she saw the truth laid out. And then, she confessed. Not to cheating, at least not physically. No, she had been emotionally cheating. She admitted she had developed feelings for her manager, and that's why she had been lying so much. She couldn't handle the guilt, but she still couldn't bring herself to tell me the truth. She even admitted she had been smoking weed every day, something she'd criticized me for in the past. But that wasn't even the worst part. I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked out of our apartment that night, told her we were getting a divorce, and blocked her number. I was furious, heartbroken, confused. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, we've only communicated through email, but last night she asked to meet. She wanted to talk. I'm not sure what I expected, but I went. And honestly, part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe I was still holding on to the idea that she wasn't actually cheating, just messing up emotionally. Her manager lived with his partner and another colleague, so the logistics of cheating seemed unlikely. But there's no denying it. She was emotionally invested in someone else. And the lying, oh God, the lying. I didn't even know she could lie like that. For months, I had trusted her, and now it felt like everything was shattered. I guess, in a way, I'm writing this because I don't know what to do. Maybe I need advice, or maybe I just need to vent. In the past, when I tried to end things, she would get so upset she'd beg me to stay, and I couldn't bring myself to hurt her like that. Maybe I'm a coward for not ending it sooner. Part of me wants to just put this behind us, to move on and tell her that if she lies to me again, it's over. But then another part of me wonders if that's just taking the easy way out. Maybe I'm avoiding the hard truth that this might be over for good, and I'm too afraid to face it. I know I've been inattentive in our relationship, and I've made mistakes. I pushed her away emotionally, and I understand that. But the lying? That's something I can't get past. It's hard to trust someone when they've repeatedly broken that trust. Anyway, sorry for the rambling. I guess my mind is a mess right now. I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Second story. AITA for wanting a divorce after my wife defended her cheating friend, threatened our marriage, and revealed a shocking truth about her loyalty. I've been married to my wife for just over a year now. We dated for 2.5 years before tying the knot, and honestly, We were both so sure of our decision. We'd been through a lot together, trusted each other completely, and had no major issues in our relationship. Well, that was true. Until about a month ago, everything was going smoothly in our lives. At least, I thought it was. I had no reason to suspect anything. We even had full access to each other's phones, so I knew there was no hiding anything. But the one thing that had always been a bit off was my father-in-law. From the very first time we met, he never liked me. He'd argue with me over the smallest things, and when we announced our engagement, it was clear he wasn't happy about it. My wife spent so much time trying to convince him, and eventually he reluctantly gave in. But there was still this tension whenever he was around. Things seemed fine though, or at least I thought they were. Then, a month ago, everything changed. My wife's close friend came over to our house. I didn't think much of it at first. She's always been around, so I figured it was just a casual visit. But then I overheard their conversation. I can't even begin to describe how I felt when I realized what they were talking about. Her friend was cheating on her husband. And worse, they were discussing how she wanted to stop cheating, but also wanted to hide it from her husband for the sake of his and their marriage. It made my stomach churn just listening to it. As soon as she left, I confronted my wife. I couldn't understand why she would just let this happen. I asked her why she wasn't telling her friend to come clean. My wife's response was that her loyalty lies with her friend, not her friend's husband. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her that it was wrong, that her friend's husband deserved the truth, and that I couldn't keep quiet about it. My wife just brushed me off, saying her friend would stop cheating and that everything would be fine if I kept my mouth shut. She assured me that it wasn't my business, and if I went behind her back, it would ruin everything. But I couldn't let it go. I kept pressing her, telling her that this was about more than just protecting her friend. It was about doing what was morally right. And for weeks, every time I brought it up, my wife got angrier. She told me to stay out of it or else she'd divorce me. I was shocked. My wife was threatening to leave me over something that felt like basic decency. That was the moment I started to question everything. 5 days ago, things came to a head. I'd had enough. We got into a massive argument, and in that moment, I said something I'll regret forever. I told her that if this was the kind of person she really was, someone who would defend a cheater, I would file for divorce myself. I told her I never would have married her if I'd known what kind of woman she was. I left that day. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, and I just needed space to think. But now, the situation has spiraled. My wife has been texting and calling non-stop. She's saying I'm destroying our marriage over something that's none of my business. She insists that she was just trying to help someone close to her, and I'm tearing apart everything we've built for something that doesn't concern us. On top of all that, she reminded me of the loan she took out before we got married. She had borrowed money to pay off her siblings' student loans, and I promised to help her pay it back. I'd also bought a house before we got married, which I said I'd keep. She's now saying that if I divorce her, I'll ruin her financially, and I'll be leaving her with nothing. But I can't just ignore what's happened. It feels like she's defending the wrong thing, and I can't live with that. I told her I'm no longer concerned with that loan or anything else. This isn't about money, it's about trust and morals. But now, her entire family, and even some of my own cousins, are saying I'm being too harsh. They claim I can't back out of my promises, and that I'm ruining a woman's life for something that didn't even hurt me directly. So now I'm left questioning everything. Was I wrong for pushing this issue? I never wanted to lose my wife, but how can I trust someone who defends a cheater? Am I the asshole for thinking that this is a deal breaker, even though my wife insists it's just a mistake on her part to defend her friend? I'm torn, and I don't know what the right move is anymore. Third story. I promised my son a share of the house profit, but when I sold it, he cut me off completely. Now I'm left heartbroken and wondering if I was wrong. For the past 7 years, I, 60F, have rented out my second home to my son, Alex, 34M. It all started off relatively smoothly. He lived there with a group of friends, paying a rent that was well below market value. I made it clear from the beginning that the arrangement would include periodic, reasonable increases and that I needed to keep this property intact to support my retirement. It was, after all, a significant portion of my nest egg. However, life doesn't always go as planned. Over time, things started to fall apart. First, I lost the homeowner's insurance because the house wasn't being properly maintained. Alex and his friends didn't exactly stay on top of things, and I had to step in. We made the necessary repairs, and I got the insurance reinstated. That wasn't the only issue. I lost my job twice, which made it even harder to juggle the mortgage payments on both this house and my primary residence. Still, I managed to bounce back, find new jobs, and cover everything. But every time one of these situations occurred, I sat down with Alex and reminded him that if I couldn't resolve the financial issues, I would have no choice but to sell the property. Over the years, I also planted the seed in his mind that he should save up money in case he ever wanted to buy the house. At first, he wasn't interested, but then, 2 years ago, things took a turn. Alex's girlfriend, 32F, moved in, and suddenly he seemed to care more about the property. I was genuinely happy for them, and I thought our relationship was strong. They told their housemates they were going to live together as a couple and asked them to move out. To my relief, his girlfriend even took the initiative to clean up the house and maintain it better. I saw it as a sign they were finally growing up, and I was proud of them. But as time went on, the neighborhood began to change in ways that weren't good. Investors swooped in, buying up properties at inflated prices. Many of the homes were left vacant for long stretches, just waiting to be rented out. And then, just a block away from us, there was a shooting. It was clear that the area was no longer as safe or desirable as it had once been. I knew it was time to sell. I wanted to take advantage of the rising property values, especially given that homes in the area had nearly doubled in price over the last year. In the fall of 2023, I sat down with Alex and his girlfriend to have a difficult conversation. I explained that the time had come for them to start making plans to move out by the fall of 2024. We discussed their finances briefly, and it became clear that they couldn't afford to buy the house at its current market value, and probably never could. That's when everything shifted. Alex's girlfriend became openly rude to me. She wasn't just disrespectful in person, she even sent nasty messages to me over text. When they moved out, they left behind petty, vindictive notes around the house. And to make matters worse, they refused to provide anyone in the family with their new address. But the worst part came when I tried to follow through on something I had promised years ago. Back in 2017, I had told Alex that when I sold the house, I would give him a portion of the profit. So I wrote him a check for his share, hoping to honor that promise. The very next day, he changed his phone number. Since then, he has completely cut me out of his life. No contact, no updates, and no explanation, just silence. I later heard from my ex-husband, 71M, Alex's father, that Alex eventually contacted him. But even then, he refused to share his new address. According to my ex, Alex said that if I ever managed to get his phone number again, he would just change it immediately. He told my ex that he and his girlfriend were cutting me out of their lives because I sold the house out from under them. And now I'm left wondering, am I the asshole here? I tried to do right by Alex, but it seems like my efforts have only resulted in heartbreak and betrayal. Was I wrong to sell the house, or did I do what any responsible parent would do, given the circumstances?